Gene Roddenberry Archive YouTube channel just put out something that for me was quite frankly amazing. As a writer-producer in Hollywood, I love reading old scripts, and they found the oldest Star Trek script that they believe exists, and it belonged to Majel Roddenberry. We're going to take a quick look at this, and I'm going to go through why this is one of the most amazing finds in Star Trek history right here. I'm writer-producer Trader Bubba. This here's cousin Amy. This is Bubba Breaks Sci-Fi.
This baby hits 88 miles per hour. You're gonna see some serious shit.
Whoa. Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream?
So say we all.
Your father was captain of a starship for 12 minutes. He saved 800 lives.
Engage.
Bubba Breaks Sci-Fi.
So we're about to look at one of the earliest drafts of the original Star Trek pilot, the Menagerie / the Cage, with handwritten notes by number one herself. And what's interesting is seeing, I love reading old pilots to see how the idea starts from point A and finally ends up at, point C, the show that we eventually get. And I'm sure by now you all know that Star Trek really had two pilots. They had the first one that never actually aired originally, and then they revamped it, changed the characters a little bit to give us Kirk and McCoy and Spock. And this pilot is just, it's so interesting to me to see the evolution of Gene Roddenberry's idea. And it also gives us a little bit of a glimpse into the psyche of the man that was Gene Roddenberry. Now, I'm going to leave a link to this video down below. This is a wonderful YouTube channel, the Gene Roddenberry Archive. They find all sorts of fun, cool stuff. I highly recommend you watch. Not that they need my little channel to support them, but you know what I mean. Earliest draft of the pilot that still exists, to the best of my knowledge and to the best of theirs. And you can see on the bottom, it's called Voyage 1, the Menagerie, and that title would change a lot. You can't quite see it in this photo, but on the very bottom, it says property of Desilu. So this is before any of the studios or networks got involved. This is back when Desilu had picked up the pilot and said, I believe in this. We're going to find a way to produce the pilot and sell it. So Christopher Pike wasn't going to be Christopher Pike. His first name as a character was James Winter, which I think is an interesting choice. But right away, when they show these different shots of the script, and as you can read it, it's interesting for me as the point of view of a writer, but it goes very much into detail about the command structure a little bit, that sort of naval rank and operations aspect of what it is to work on the show or on the Enterprise. And, Gene Roddenberry was in the Navy, and he had a lot of respect for his time that he served in the Navy in World War II. And he wanted to bring that aspect of it into Star Trek, which is an interesting dichotomy because when it came time to make Star Trek the motion picture, they really pushed away from anything at all naval or military. And there's that always sort of fighting dichotomy of, is Starfleet a military or is it more like a NASA, right? A scientific organization. So this is probably my favorite bit because Gene Roddenberry was courting Majel at this point. Take a look.
Number one, female, slim, and dark in a Nile Valley way. One of those women who will always look the same between ages 20 and 50.
So that's, I love that. That's just Gene Roddenberry being smooth and being like, hey, I wrote this role for you. Look at the character description. Yeah. Gene was such a ladies' man, and that would come back to haunt him, obviously, throughout his life. And, nobody's perfect, and that was one of Gene's flaws, really. But this is an interesting episode too, because at the very end, when Captain Pike, as he's now called, comes back, so he was on this planet and he had to choose basically between these two female officers, and one of them is number one, and he was given a choice to pick one to sort of repopulate this planet. And at the very end, Gene Roddenberry wrote this kind of interesting moment where Pike is supposed to look at the two women and silently ask himself, which one would he have chosen? And you know, for a pilot episode of a show to be so, I mean, it's definitely a little, it's definitely a man's story, you know. Oh, I gotta repopulate this planet, and I got two of these beautiful women to choose from. Which one do I choose? That's such a Gene Roddenberry thing. Being able to look back so many years later and have a somewhat of an understanding of the man. That is such a Gene Roddenberry thing, and it works. And that was probably my favorite, because you watch the show and you see the actors portray, but sometimes you might miss that little nuance of what it means when this character's taking a quick glance at somebody. But here on the written page, Gene Roddenberry made it very clear. Captain Pike is having a little silent moment, like, hey, which one would I have boinked to repopulate this planet? It's an interesting dichotomy, because he's trying to show that in the future we've come so far, we've evolved as a species, as humanity, and as men, but we still have our basic primal urges that we have to deal with, accept, overcome. And it's all in there, and it's all on the page. Very Gene Roddenberry. One thing I found interesting was that the transporters were there from, the pilot episode. I was always under the impression that they wanted to do more shuttle landings, and it was something that not like slowly. I mean, it was very quickly turned into transporters, but I always thought that the original concept was to do more shuttle landings, and it became apparent very quickly in the creation of the show that it would just be too expensive. But here in this earliest draft, they have a very detailed description of the transporter room, and it's actually like the writing of this is very cool. Added to regular uniforms are jackets to which are attached communications and laser pistols, not phasers yet. CPO Garrison is carrying a supplementary survival pack on his back, completely unlike any other station on the Enterprise. The transporter room is heavily shielded, dominated by a device which could be an artist's nightmare conception of a futuristic X-ray machine. It hovers over glassed-in transporter chamber, which the landing is now entering. So that was Gene's initial, we'll just use this magical transporter device to save us money. And then this is one of the I was surprised to see that this would answer this question, but so in the very pilot episode, I think Spock is supposed to be a Martian, if I remember correctly. He wasn't, the Vulcan whole thing hadn't really been created yet. So this is the rare instance where you get to see Spock smile. And I was always curious if that's just the way, if that was an acting choice, but no, it was actually written on the page that these plants are vibrating and creating music. And Mr. Spock grins in relief as he points out the source of the music. So I always thought, it's such a random little nitpicky Star Trek fan thing. But it's funny because this character, again, would morph and change into something much different than what he was in the first unaired pilot episode. The pilot episode of Star Trek has always fascinated me. It started at point A, and the Star Trek that we would come to know and love was really point C or D. They made a lot of changes, and it's always fun to see where it started and to wonder what would have Star Trek have been like had this pilot been accepted, had this been the crew and the storylines moving forward without Kirk and McCoy and a happy-go-lucky Martian Spock. I'll leave the link for this video down below. You're going to want to check it out. It's a fascinating watch. It's really fun to watch them go through and read some of her notes. She had some very strong notes on her character about keeping it professional, but I'll leave that for the video. So Gene Roddenberry Archive, I love that YouTube channel. They find the coolest stuff to go back and not only look at, but share with us Star Trek fans. Guys, I'm writer, producer, trader Bub, but thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Special shout out to my channel members. Couldn't do this without you. Don't go away just yet. There's another video popping up right here, and you're going to want to check this one out.
Yeah, Bubba breaks Sci-FI.